Welcome back to another episode of Be Inspired Podcast, where we're inspiring you to live the abundant life you deserve. So, most business don't fail because they lack passion. They fail because they built something nobody was waiting for. We spend months creating products, perfect websites, designing logos, writing business plans before we've even answered the one critical question: does anyone actually need this? Today's conversation isn't about growing your business. It's about making sure you're building the right one. Because sometimes the smartest business decision isn't scaling faster, it's slowing down long enough to validate the opportunity. So let's dive in. We got Dan Beach on the line. Welcome, Dan Beach, to the call. The podcast is an is a seasoned executive investor and operator with more than 25 years of experience building and scaling companies across real estate, lending, blockchain technology, healthcare, consumer packages, and much, much more. So we have an awesome episode for you guys today. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Great to be here. Really honored to have a chance to speak with you and connect with your audience. And yeah, thanks for having me.
So you talk about clarity before commitment
Mm.
on your website and your speeches. What moment in your career taught you that conviction isn't the same as validation?
Wow. I think that as entrepreneurs and business owners, that's that's a really that's a really key question. So, it's because think about the personality set of an entrepreneur, right? This is the person that has been curious about the world. The reason why they have some product or solution in mind is because they were first asking the questions, why? Like why doesn't this work better? Why why doesn't someone do it this way? Why are we, stuck with this product? So it starts there, but then entrepreneurs have a special drive, you know. It's everyone has ambition, but an entrepreneur kind of has, almost like the horse on the racetrack, that with the blinders so they can only see forward. Entrepreneurs just have this drive that, get out of my way, nobody stops me, achieve my goals. And the the problem that I see a lot of entrepreneurs encountering, because they're coming from that place, a lot of people just don't slow down long enough to validate exactly how you framed it. Is someone willing to pay for whatever it is that I'm developing? And so that's I think that's the biggest challenge, is to, that very part of who you are as an entrepreneur that is going to drive your success, like being able to put the pause button on that for a moment just to confirm your own ideas are something that people are willing to pay for.
Wow. So just taking a moment before getting into everything else, just figuring out, all right, who's my audience? What do they want? You know?
Yeah, yeah. And the hard part of that is that process can take months, and
Yeah.
that's a long time for someone who's really anxious to launch a product. Like the one that we've just launched, Archively, we spent we spent a solid 6 months before we built anything. We spent at least 6 months just talking to consumers about the problems that they were having or had experienced, in their family around when a loved one dies and when the family is able to sort of move on cleanly. There's this whole gap process where some people are fighting in probate court and some people can't find their documents and family members are stop talking to each other and things like that. So we wanted to build a solution for that, and we thought we had a really good idea, and I had two paths to choose from: just race forward and build a solution, or put a pause on that and go talk to and go talk to people. And it was tough, putting a pause on this idea I was excited about. But I spent 6 months talking to the consumers, and now what I've built matches the stories that they told me.
Yeah.
So it's a much better product, and we're really helping people, 10x what I would have been helping people if I'd only just charged along with my blinders on.
Mhm.
Going,
So, how do you know when you're solving a real problem versus creating a solution for a problem that doesn't actually exist?
that's a great question. So people talk about product market fit, right? Like it's a definition of you have your product or solution, and you've identified who your core target customer is, and more than that, you've identified how to connect with them. Maybe it's at the local swap meet, maybe it's social media ads, whatever it is, right? So you have the product, you have the connection to the customer, and then you have the customers that are willing to pay. So that's pretty, everybody talks about product market fit. But even in that scenario, you're still, the way we think of that is reversing it. Think of the push and pull concept. So if you have product market fit, you know who your customer is, you know how to reach them, you're still pushing your product to the customer. What we look for, and to answer your exact question, how do you know, is when it's reversed, when it's market product fit. When you feel the target customer pulling you to provide that solution to them, that's when you really, really know. And so in our businesses, we very often have established product market fit. We've done lots of traction channel testing. We know how to reach the customer. We know where they are. We know, we've niched down who the ICP is, the ideal customer profile. So we know how to do that, but we still keep going another step further until we refine all of those three components enough that now the market is pulling us to them. That's how you really know. That's what I think people should be looking for.
So, how do you end up looking for that and finding it? So it's easy to say, yeah, you get the market value and looking for the people that are running towards you. But say you're new and you don't have an exact idea how to get people running after you. What do you do?
Yeah, great question. There's a couple of books that I'll suggest to your listeners. So the quick and easy answer is run as many quick, cheap validation tests as possible. So I'll give you an example. Like for one of our tests that we ran is, will someone like this service that we're offering? Yes or no? That was the test. And so we ran Facebook ads, made a really quick, simple ad, ran the ad. The ad call to action was click on this link for more information. There was no more information. I just wanted to know. This is we call it a smoke test. I just was measuring how many people were clicking on that link. That was my validation that someone was interested. And then I could take it another step farther. So if you can think about your journey in those kind of scenarios where at each little increment you're testing before you're committing time, money, and resources, that'll save you so much heartache. And we test as much as possible, absolutely everything. So just like in the example I gave earlier, where we could have built this product archively based on our expert insider knowledge. 18 trust and estate attorneys, wealth managers, like we really know the problem. Uh, we could have just built that, but it's 10x better now for having talked to the customers first. The same thing happened when we were testing what exact features people might want. Okay, had a we knew that we're solving a problem. We knew what the solution had to be, but we had a list of 30 potential features that could be into the software. So that's again time and money. If we're just going to build things on our own without customer impact, what if we spend time and money building a feature that nobody really cares about?
Yeah.
Or what if we spent that time and money and missed the opportunity to add something that they really did care about? So we ran lots of validation testing with user groups to see what people cared about. If this was your problem, if this was your solution, out of these 10 features, which one would be must have, nice to have, don't care about? And we were shocked. There were a couple of little things that I threw in, like 24 access to an online notary service or on-demand attorney consultations. Those were things that I kind of thought were maybes, and I just threw it on the list anyway to see what would happen. And 90% of the people said that they wanted that. Sorry, I think we had some feedback there. So by going through this validation process, sometimes you learn so much information that if you were just in your head and building solutions, you wouldn't necessarily have. But there's the books that I would suggest that people read are The Lean Startup by Eric Rice. That's the gold standard. It really teaches you how to start a business as cheaply and quickly as possible, validating things that work and don't work. It really gives you the mindset that failure is not a bad thing, but if you're going to fail, you want to fail as quickly as possible and as cheaply as possible so that you move that off the board. You know that doesn't work. Let me focus on the things that will work. So that one's excellent. And then the other one is called Traction by Gabriel Weinberg. And so this one really is answering your question that you asked me earlier. How do you connect with those customers? Everyone automatically defaults to most people, I should say, these days. Let me run some social media ads. Let me try to go viral. But the reality is there's lots of other ways to connect with your customer, and your target customer might not be on social media. And this book, Traction, helps you kind of forces you to think of the other ways that you could connect with your customers. Like there's a
Right.
really famous quote from the CEO of Ferrari when some reporter asked him, why aren't you, why doesn't Ferrari run ads on TV? We never see all the other car companies run ads on TV. And the guy says, our customers aren't watching TV. So this book Traction helps you think about your customers in a new way and where they are and how you can connect with them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's phenomenal because he's right. Like, if you're making that much money to buy a Ferrari, you're not sitting down watching TV. You're out there running a business, playing a football game, training your craft, different things. So that's a fact right there. That book Traction is really good.
Yeah, I
So,
think that'll help people a lot.
yeah. Have you ever fallen in love with an idea you later had to walk away from?
Yeah. Yeah, just recently really we spent in one of our lines is investment real estate here in Los Angeles, and we've spent 5 years really kind of perfecting this investment model. There's a lot of dynamics to the real estate market in Los Angeles. It's quite expensive. The average home here is a million five. So a lot of first time home buyers are really kind of locked out of the market. If you that the old model of save up your money and 5% down first time home buyer program, it's really unattainable here in Los Angeles anymore. So we've we're a bunch of creative numbers geeks, and so we found really creative ways of working around that and using density legislation that's passed here. And so we built it, we launched this campaign, and the market has changed. It's now the interest rates have gone up. People are not selling their properties. And so, yeah, that's an example of one where we just felt really strongly that we had this great solution and didn't do the validation testing, didn't really talk to people, just kind of put it out there and had some moderate success, but not really the amount of success that we were looking for.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is external. The market has changed really in rates and stuff that I mentioned. But yeah, that one was a bummer.
So, why do entrepreneurs tend to validate their own beliefs instead of validating the market?
Yeah, that I think that comes back to that confidence, that we were talking about earlier. It's hard to. It was hard for me. We feel so strongly about, hey, I've got this great idea. I'm going to solve these problems and I'm going to change the world. And it's a hard switch in my mind. The way that I had to do that was I had to reframe all of these ideas that I had as a hypothesis until the a customer confirmed it. So no matter how strongly I feel about an idea, in my own mind, I have to sort of force myself to reframe that as a hypothesis. It's just a thought I have in my own head until someone who's willing to pay for it also agrees that it's a good idea.
So, if some business owners or founders, being in business for so long, interviewed their customers before building, like what you alluded to earlier, of like doing a test marketing where you just nothing's in the link, but you just see how many clicks go there. What questions do you wish every founder would ask?
Uh, that's an interesting question. So I think I would think about that in a couple of different ways. So if you have an existing business and maybe you're wanting to add a new product or a new service to whatever it is you have already, still think that you should think of that as an entrepreneurial exercise, as launching a new thing that no matter how well informed you have, and if it's an existing business, you're going to have a whole, years of customer data and be an expert, but still force yourself to go through this validation exercise. Can I reach my target customer in the way that I think I can? And will they pay for this product or solution at the price point that I think that I should sell it? And uh, all of that is a humbling exercise when, as a business owner, if you have 10 years running a business, you're an absolute expert, right? So you know your customers, but I would still encourage people to go through this exercise. But even if you're not launching, the second way that I would think about that is even if you're not launching something new, I think that customer discovery process, that's what we call the talking to the customers sort of segment that I mentioned earlier. I think that continues. That should never stop.
Yeah.
As the business owner, as really the CEO or the founder, I think you constantly have to be observing how your customers are interacting with your product or your service or your storefront and talking to them, understanding why they made a purchase, why they didn't, understanding their lives, because really our solutions that we're selling people as an entrepreneur, a product or a service, it's performing some job for them. They're they're hiring us to do something for them, even if it's a product, right? Like it you could take a cell phone, for example. The job that the cell phone is doing for the consumer is keeping them in touch with their families or helping them run their business or providing entertainment, right? So if you understand your customers, and you can only do this by really speaking to them, if you can understand that, hey, X number of customers are having a disconnect with the job that they want done, which is connecting with their family, maybe really that's what you focus on instead of should I add an extra resolution of camera to my phone. So without talking to your customer all the time, you really don't know if you're solving their problems.
Yeah. Okay. So, what's a sign that someone is building a business to impress people rather than solve a problem?
Uh, well, we call those vanity metrics. That's a really great question also. People might measure, when especially in the beginning, right? Like they're trying to launch a new product, they might say, "Man, I've got 20,000 people on my waiting list and I've got 100,000 views on my video that went viral, or so many clicks or so many shares or whatever it is, right?" And those are meaningful. They're they're demonstrating interest or demand verification or something like that. You can use that in the beginning to know that you're on the right path. But if none of that converts to sales,
Yeah.
then those are vanity metrics, right? Like whatever it is your conversion funnel is, the people on the waiting list, is that really meaningful if once you launch your product nobody actually buys it, right? So i think I think founders should give some thought to make sure that they're measuring meaningful, we call them KPIs, key performance indicators, and that could be anything. Like I'll give you an example. The For Archively, this online document storage that we just launched, our key, there's multiple metrics that we're measuring, but our North Star metric, where it's the it's the simplest idea that we can measure if we are providing value to the customer or not. And for us, the North Star metric is number of documents uploaded. So for like Airbnb, for example, maybe it's number of nights booked. It's not it's not how many people shared this cabin in the mountains, how many people bookmarked it. Those are vanity metrics, right? Like the core North Star metric is how many nights were booked. For us, it's how many documents are uploaded by each user. And so from there, as we're trying to make decisions about how should we do advertising or what features should we deploy, what traction channels should we use, it informs all of the upstream activities as a filter point to help us hopefully remove any of those vanity metrics that are not worth measuring. We ask the question, okay, this is a great idea. This is a great plan. We could execute that really quickly and easily, but is it really going to increase the number of documents uploaded? Is it going to increase the core value that we're offering to our customer? So I think maybe that could be helpful for people to reframe how they're thinking about what they measure.
So, you mentioned Archivally, right?
Mm,
So, tell me more
yeah.
about that. What is that?
Well, so we ran a financial planning wealth management firm for about 13 years,
Okay.
still going. Ultra high net worth people, and we worked with a lot of trust and estate attorneys. And one of the things that we saw, a consistent pattern that touches almost every family, is that even when families have done all of their estate planning, they've paid 2,000, 15, 20, sometimes $30,000 on their estate planning if it's really complicated. Wh- those families still end up in probate court. Those families still end up with confusion after the leader dies and nobody knows where to find the critical documents. And so maybe mom can't pay the bills because all the accounts are frozen and no one knows where the trust is. People still on the on the minor side, you're not fighting in probate, but maybe brothers and sisters don't talk to each other for, disrupting family
Yeah.
dynamics and the love. And so what we ended up doing so much of our time was helping families navigate through this problem and just solving these situations. And we really realized there was a real gap between when somebody dies and their family's able to move on cleanly. It's communication, it's emotions, it's just the logistics of accounts. And so we built Archively from the inside out, from the expert's view of how to solve this problem and
Mhm.
remove as many of those failure points as possible. So it's an online document storage solution. It's built on blockchain. We're using today's technology, and we just launched it about a month ago, actually. And
Wow. Congrats.
we're really helping families preserve. It's really one generation handing off what they built their whole life to the next generation without that disruption. So we're really excited to help people do that. And
But what's one decision entrepreneurs make too quickly and one they wait too long to make?
I think a tough one, a really tough one, is pricing. How to figure out how much to charge. And there's so many ways that can go wrong or right. You could charge too little and leave money on the table. You could charge too much and not have, any cash flow, any growth. So yeah, that there's lots of ways around trying to turn pricing into a growth lever instead of just, a concept that you have to pick a number for. And again, we go back to validation. I, I mentioned it earlier. We don't make every idea that we have is a hypothesis until the customer confirms it, right? So even
Yeah.
here on pricing, so I'll give you an example. There's a format called a Van Westendorp pricing, and so you identify who your target customer is, so this is the person who you would be selling to, whatever that demographic is, and where they're located, and all of that relevant information. And so you want to ask them 4 questions. Here's the product, here's the service, and at what price would you consider this product too cheap and you would not buy it? At what price would you consider this product at a really good value and you would definitely buy it? At what price would you start feeling this is maybe a little too expensive, but you probably still would buy it? And then the fourth question is, at what price is it too expensive and you would not buy it at all? And so you give them some framework, right? Like between $10 and $100, and then these are the 4 questions. And so you need at least 100 of those people, and then you can chart the results, and it'll give you the midpoint number
Mm.
based on customers. So I'll give you a real world example. When we were doing, we ran Archively through this process, and I was thinking in my mind that we have 4 different pricing plans, but the main sort of family pricing plan, and I was thinking that would be probably $49 a month, $50 a month. And after running the Van Westendorp survey, all of the feedback came back at $100 a month. So here I was, highly confident about my pricing. I had compared all of my competitors. I'd had lots of discussions with really smart people, and we had all kind of thought $50 was a good number. But when I talked to the customers, they were willing to pay double that. So we've set our pricing at 100. So none of that is guesswork. So that I think that's a really key important challenge for any founder, any entrepreneur. And that's a really challenging one. You have to be really, really careful around pricing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the most challenging one to deal with, to be honest, because like you want to start and you just don't know what to price at. So you just don't do much. You give everything away for free or
Right,
you charge too little. And now you're working harder in your business when you were in business to make money.
right. And,
And, you know,
there's also sometimes it's an effect, we call it churn, if you price the product too cheaply, people don't value it, and maybe they get that recurring, bill on their credit card every month or their bank account, and they go, let me just cancel that. I didn't, that
yeah,
$10 a month. So you're on the lower priced products, your churn rate can actually be much higher than the
yeah.
higher priced products.
So you shared a lot of tips, you shared a lot of ideas, right?
Mm,
So I got two more questions for you. What is
Okay.
one thing that you thought I may ask, but I did not ask?
Well, I was really kind of open-minded about the podcast and just kind of excited to be on. I'm a little new to doing these podcasts
Yeah,
and kind of sharing our insider kind of techniques that we use in our firm. So I didn't have a particular expectation, but from the title from the title of your podcast, Be Inspired, I was thinking the questions you might have might be more like high level concept questions. And so I've been really pleasantly surprised that they're more, or maybe it's just the way I'm answering, I don't know. But we've been able to talk about what I think, hopefully anyway, is really tangible things that people can apply to their lives. So that's been a really nice, pleasant experience.
yeah, and that's always the goal, to see what tips you can give for the next person that they may not have thought of, like
Yeah,
archivally or things you built, that it took a process and you just know that this little thing would help somebody get to the next level.
right. I hope so.
So imagine someone is listening right now with a notebook full of ideas, but too afraid to start. What's the first question they should answer before they build anything?
First question is, am I building the right thing? Am I building something that's really solving, we call it a hair on fire problem or a broken leg problem. Like, and the analogy is that, if your hair's on fire, you're going to do something about it, right? Or if you have a stool and there's three legs and one of the legs is broken, it's not functional as a stool anymore, right? It can't even. So make sure that's the first thing is make sure the idea that you have is solving a problem that is so meaningful for people that they absolutely say, oh man, I have to have that. And if you're not getting that response from people, then that's the indication that you haven't done enough customer discovery. You don't know your customer well enough. You Let me say that differently. You don't know their lives around this problem well enough to really understand which little thing is the biggest hair on fire problem. And so maybe you need to pivot and understand your customer a little bit better and reimagine your solution to make sure that you're solving that broken leg problem. That's where you have to start.
Right. So find the hair on fire problem, the broken leg problem, pain in each person's situation and be the solution to their pain.
Absolutely right.
Awesome. Dan, I want to thank you for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom, sharing your knowledge. Archivally, if you haven't checked it out, if you want to set up your family for when you go through transitions, go ahead and check him out, check it out, see what you can do, what can benefit you. And if you can, share it for somebody, if someone in your family members may need archivally, right? So I want to thank everybody for watching the show. Thank you for subscribing. And if Dan said anything that resonated with you, go ahead and let's have a conversation in the comments. All right. So we'll see you on the next episode of Be Inspired Podcast, where we're inspiring you to live the abundant life you deserve.